I never imagined my own son would look me in the eyes and tell me I wasn't good enough to stand beside him on the biggest day of his life. But that's how this story begins, with a sentence that sliced through me sharper than any knife. Sorry. Mom, it's a luxury event. And my fancy says you're too embarrassing. Before we go any further, make sure you subscribe for more real-life stories just like this one. And please comment the city you're watching from, because I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let me take you into the moment everything changed. It was a Thursday afternoon when my son Ethan walked into my living room. He looked handsome, tall, dressed in one of those tailored shirts his fiancée Cassandra insisted he wear. But he looked nervous. He kept fiddling with his sleeve, clearing his throat. I thought he was maybe coming to ask for help, or maybe even to share some good news. Instead, he sat down across from me and said, "Mom, I need to talk to you about the wedding." My heart warmed immediately. I straightened my glasses, ready to hear what he wanted me to bake, or what color dress Cassandra preferred me to wear. But he didn't smile. His face froze into something tight and rehearsed. That's when he delivered the line that would echo in my ears for hours. The wedding is going to be very private, very elegant, and Cassandra thinks you might not fit the vibe. I blinked. Not fit the vibe. He swallowed. She says you're too embarrassing. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't ask how a mother could possibly embarrass a son she raised alone for 27 years, working 2 jobs, skipping meals so he could eat, skipping bills so he could stay in school. I didn't remind him of the nights he used to sleep on my lap because he was afraid of thunderstorms, or how I stayed awake during his fevers whispering prayers over his forehead. I didn't bring up the years I sacrificed everything so he could grow into the man he was. I simply breathed in and said, "I understand." The truth is, I didn't understand. Not even close. But the words left my mouth because arguing at that moment felt like holding on to someone who was already walking away. He stood up quickly, relieved, almost too relieved. Like he expected a fight and was happy he didn't get one. "Thank you, Mom, really. It's just, Cassandra. She wants everything perfect. Everyone has to look a certain way. Act a certain way." I nodded again. "I'm happy for you both." He gave me one of those half hugs, the kind a stranger gives you when they don't want to be rude, and then he left. As the door closed behind him, the silence pressed against me. I sat down on the couch and stared at the empty space where he had just stood. My hands shook a little. I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel heartbreak yet. I felt invisible. Like years of love, care, and sacrifice had suddenly turned into something disposable. But I didn't call him back. I didn't text. I didn't beg to be included. If my presence at his wedding was such a burden, then maybe I didn't belong there. A few days later, the wedding day arrived. I knew the time because the hotel they chose posted their events online. The Monroe Grand Ballroom, luxury wedding. I recognized the description instantly. Cassandra kept bragging about that hotel, the chandeliers imported from Italy, the marble floors, the gold-trimmed chairs, the kind of place where even a glass of water costs more than my weekly groceries. I made myself a cup of tea, sat by the window and tried to convince myself I was fine. But then, 2 hours after the wedding began, my phone buzzed. One missed call. Then another. And another. By the time I reached for the phone, I had 22 missed calls. All from Ethan. All within minutes. And before I could even process the number, the phone rang again. My heart pounded. I answered. "Mom, please pick up." Ethan's voice cracked through the line. Breathless, frantic, like he was running or crying or both. In the background, I heard shouting. Music. Something metallic crashing. Someone screaming. "Ethan?" I said, my voice trembling. "What's happening?" He didn't answer my question. Instead, he said something that made the world tilt under my feet. "Mom, we need you. Please, please come." Those words, the same son who said I wasn't worthy of being seen at his wedding, now begging me to come, felt surreal. My mind raced. "Ethan, what happened? Is someone hurt? Is Cassandra okay?" But he didn't explain. He only repeated, "Mom, please. I'm sending someone to pick you up." Before I could say another word, the call ended. I stood there holding the phone, trying to understand what could have gone so horribly wrong at a wedding so perfect that even a mother didn't fit the aesthetic. Had someone gotten sick? Had a fight broken out? Was Ethan injured? Was Cassandra in danger? My heart twisted with worry despite the pain he had caused me earlier. Minutes later, a black car pulled up in front of my small house. The back door opened and a man in a suit stepped out. "Ma'am," he said, slightly breathless. "Mr. Ethan sent me. He said it's urgent." Something inside me hesitated, fear, confusion, maybe even a little pride, but the instinct of a mother overpowered everything else. I grabbed my shawl and followed the man to the car dot as we drove across the city, toward the glowing hotel I was never meant to step foot in. One thought kept repeating in my mind: why did they need me now? And even more frightening, what exactly happened at that wedding? The drive to the Monroe Grand Ballroom felt longer than it should have. The city lights blurred past the window as I sat in the back seat, my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles turned white. I tried to stay calm, but my mind spun in circles. Why had Ethan called me 22 times? Why would a wedding, especially one planned to perfection by Cassandra, need me? The closer we got to the hotel, the heavier my chest felt. And when the car finally turned into the long, gated driveway, my breath caught. It was the kind of place that looked like a palace: tall pillars, sharp white stone, fountains glowing blue under spotlights. I wasn't supposed to be here. According to Cassandra, I didn't fit here. But tonight, someone inside desperately wanted me. The driver parked in front, rushed out, and opened my door. The moment I stepped onto the marble walkway, I heard noise coming from inside. Not the cheerful kind. This was shouting, panic, something breaking. The driver motioned for me to hurry. "This way, ma'am." "It's bad." My heart jolted. "Is someone hurt?" He didn't answer. That terrified me more than any answer would have. We hurried through the lobby. People in expensive clothes crowded the hallway, guests, waiters, staff, everyone talking at once, everyone looking toward the ballroom with wide, stunned eyes. I heard snippets. Never seen anything like it. She completely lost control. "This wedding is ruined." My stomach tightened. When we reached the ballroom door, 2 hotel managers were trying and failing to calm down a cluster of angry guests. But Ethan was nowhere in sight. Cassandra wasn't either. A cold dread crept through me as the driver pushed the door open and guided me inside. The moment I stepped in, I froze. The room looked like a battlefield. Chairs overturned. Plates shattered. Flowers crushed under shoes. A massive wedding cake, one that probably cost more than my monthly rent, lay toppled on its side, like it had been shoved off the table. And in the middle of it all stood my son. Ethan was holding his head, pacing in circles, tears on his cheeks, his hair a mess. Around him, groomsmen and guests whispered, phones out, filming, judging. But none of them approached him. When he looked up and saw me, he gasped like he couldn't believe I actually came. "Mom," he said. Rushing toward me so quickly, I instinctively took a step back. He stopped in front of me, breathing hard. "Thank God you're here." I touched his arm gently. "Ethan, tell me what happened. Are you hurt?" He shook his head, eyes wild. "It's Cassandra. Mom, she had a breakdown. A huge one. She's locked in the bridal suite, screaming at everyone. She smashed the cake, threw the decorations, yelled at her bridesmaids. Mom, she hit one of them." "What?" My breath caught. "Why? What triggered her?" He swallowed. Then he whispered something I did not expect. "She said you ruined the wedding." I blinked. "Me? I wasn't even here." "I know," he said quickly, running a hand over his face. "But she said she could feel your presence. That you were a stain on her perfect day. She kept screaming that I disrespected her by letting someone like you raise me." Mom, she went completely off the rails. For a moment I couldn't speak. The woman he chose over me, the woman he said was too classy for someone like me, was now blaming me for a disaster I wasn't even present at. "Where is she now?" I asked quietly. "Upstairs," he said. "She won't let anyone in. Not the planner, not her bridesmaids, not even her father. She keeps screaming she wants you. She wants to talk to you." "Talk to me?" I whispered. "After saying I embarrass her?" Ethan's voice cracked. Mom, please. I know I messed up. I should have never said what I said earlier. I panicked. Cassandra pushed me into it. But right now, I need you. She won't calm down unless she sees you. I stood there, the chaos buzzing around me, guests staring openly, some in sympathy, others in judgmental silence. All my life, I had raised my son to be brave, kind, respectful. But at that moment, he looked like a little boy again, lost, scared, reaching for me the way he used to during thunderstorms. The mother in me took over. Take me to her. He let out a shaky breath of relief and nodded Dot as we walked toward the private hallway leading to the bridal suite. His voice dropped to a whisper. Mom, I don't know what she's going to say. She's not herself right now. I didn't answer. I was preparing myself mentally, emotionally for anything. When we reached the suite, two bridesmaids sat outside, nursing bruises on their arms, mascara streaked down their faces. One of them looked up at me. She's been screaming your name for 20 minutes, she said quietly. I don't think she's stable. I inhaled deeply. Ethan knocked gently. Cass, I brought her. My mom is here. Silence. Then suddenly, a loud thud against the door. Cassandra's voice, dripping with venom. Let her in. Ethan looked at me helplessly. I touched his hand. Stay here. He nodded. With one more breath to steady myself. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit. Makeup scattered across the floor. The wedding dress half torn. Furniture pushed aside like a storm had passed through. And in the middle sat Cassandra, her hair wild, eyes bloodshot, breathing hard like she'd run miles. When she lifted her head and saw me, something dark flickered in her gaze. You, she hissed. Finally. I closed the door behind me. Cassandra, I said softly. I'm here. Tell me what's wrong. Her mouth twisted into a bitter smile. You're what's wrong, she spat. You. Everything about you. You ruined my wedding without even showing up. I stayed calm. How could I ruin something I wasn't part of? Her laugh was sharp, unhinged. Because your existence ruins everything. And for the first time that night, I realized this wasn't about a wedding at all. It was about something deeper, something darker, something that went far. Beyond me, embarrassing anyone. Cassandra's words hung in the air. Heavy and poisonous. I stood there in the dim bridal suite, surrounded by shattered makeup compacts and torn lace, watching a woman unravel in a way that felt almost unreal. She was shaking not with fear but with rage. Pure, undiluted rage. And I had no idea why it was directed at me. I took one slow step forward, trying to keep my voice calm. Cassandra, I didn't come here to fight with you. I came because Ethan said you needed me. Her eyes rolled with sharp disdain. Ethan is weak, she snapped. He always has been. That's your fault. You raised him alone, didn't you? Her lip curled. No father. No proper upbringing. No class. And now look, he can't handle one wedding without calling. You. I swallowed the sting those words carried. They didn't shock me, but hearing them out loud, hearing the resentment behind them cut deeper than I expected. Cassandra, I said quietly, what you're feeling right now. It's not about the wedding. Something else is hurting you. Tell me what's really going on. Her face twitched. For a second, something vulnerable flickered in her eyes, fear. Sadness? Panic. But then she snapped her gaze away and let out an ugly laugh. You think you're some kind of mother figure to me now? Don't pretend you care. You want to know what's wrong? She grabbed a handful of her ruined gown and ripped it further. Everything is wrong. Everything. She walked toward the vanity, the mirror cracked down the center. She stared at her reflection with a mix of disgust and desperation. You don't know what it's like to live under pressure, she muttered. To be perfect. To look perfect. To marry perfectly. To impress everyone. Her voice trembled. My mother raised me for this moment. This wedding. It was supposed to make my family proud. It was supposed to show the world who I am. She turned toward me suddenly, eyes wide. And then your son proposed, she said. Barely a manager at his job? Not from money. No social pedigree. But I loved him anyway. I thought I could shape him. Fix him. Make him fit my world. Her breathing worsened, like every word made her chest tighten. But he didn't change, she whispered. He stayed. Him. And you. She pointed at me with a shaking finger. You were the proof of everything he refused to leave behind. I understood. I understood. It clicked suddenly, painfully. This wasn't about me embarrassing her. This was about her fear that I represented the life Ethan came from, the part of him she could never polish into her perfect fantasy. I never tried to interfere with your relationship, I said gently. I stayed away because I wanted him to be happy. Happy? She screamed, slamming her hand onto the vanity. Do you think I'm happy? Do you think I'm allowed to be anything less than perfect for 1 second? My mother is out there probably humiliating herself in front of guests. Because I'm not performing. They're all watching me. Judging me. Tears streamed down her face, cutting through her makeup like black rivers. I stepped closer. She didn't move away this time, Cassandra, I said softly. No one is perfect. Not you, not Ethan, not me. And you don't have to destroy yourself trying to be. But those words didn't soothe her. They ignited her. Stop talking like you know me, she shrieked. She picked up a crystal perfume bottle and threw it against the wall. It shattered, the scent spreading through the room like smoke dot. She sank to the floor, gripping her head with both hands, rocking back and forth. I can't do this, she whispered. I can't do this anymore. They expect everything from me. They want perfection. They want flawless. They want a daughter who never embarrasses them. She choked on a sob. And I can't fail. I can't fail today. Not today. My heart broke for her, not as my son's fiancée, not as the woman who insulted me, but as a human being collapsing under a lifetime of pressure. I slowly lowered myself to the floor beside her. Cassandra, look at me. She did. And for the first time, she looked like a frightened child. I know what it's like, I said. To feel like everything is on your shoulders. To feel like you have no room for mistakes. To feel alone even when you're surrounded by people. Her breathing slowed just a little. When Ethan was young, I continued, I worked myself to exhaustion trying to do everything alone, trying to never slip up. Trying to be both his mother and father. Trying to raise him into a good man even when I had nothing left to give. She stared at me, eyes trembling. But you know what I learned? I said, love isn't about perfection. It's not about image. It's not about money or fancy weddings. Love is messy, loud, complicated, imperfect. Then I reached for her hand. And if you want to love my son, if you truly want a life with him, you'll have to let go of this idea of perfection that's destroying you. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks silently. For a moment the room was calm. Soft, human dot, then suddenly she jerked her hand away. No, she said shakily. No, no, no. You don't get to come in here and act like some wise hero. You weren't invited to this wedding. You're not part of my life. Ethan should have cut you off ages ago. Her voice hardened. You're not good enough for him. That hurt, but I kept my face still. If that's truly what you believe, I said quietly, then you don't love him. Her eyes widened with fury. I continued, because loving someone means loving where they came from. Loving the people who shaped them. Loving the parts of them they didn't choose but can't change. Silence. You want Ethan, I whispered, but you don't want his past. You don't want his roots. You don't want his heart. You just want the version of him that fits your image. Cassandra trembled like she wanted to deny it, but COULDN single quotes T dot. Suddenly, she stood up and staggered toward the door. Get out, she snarled. Get out of this room. Get out of my wedding. Get out of our lives. I rose slowly. I'll leave, I said softly. But understand this. Ethan called me because he knows I'm the only one who truly loves him. And nothing you say will ever change that. She gripped the door handle, her shoulders heaving. I opened the door and stepped out. Ethan rushed toward me. Mom, what happened? Is she okay? I looked at him with a tenderness I hadn't felt in years. She needs help, I said. More than you or I can give her. He stared at the closed door, fear clouding his eyes. What do I do? He whispered. I exhaled. You're going to have to choose, I said. Between her fantasy and your reality. Ethan stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the bridal suite door like it held all the answers he'd been running from. I could see the conflict in his eyes. The love he felt for Cassandra battling with the fear of what she had become. The pressure he carried, the shame of how he had treated me. He looked so lost that for a moment he reminded me of the little boy who used to cling to my leg on the first day of school. "Mom," he whispered, as if afraid to say more. I rested a hand on his arm. "It's okay," I said softly. "Take a breath." But he shook his head, eyes burning with regret. "No, it's not. I've ruined everything." "No," I corrected him gently. "The wedding may be ruined. But everything else? You still have control over that." He swallowed hard, his gaze drifting toward the chaos in the ballroom. "I thought this day was supposed to be the happiest of my life." "Happy doesn't come from fancy halls or chandeliers," I said. "It comes from peace. And you're not at peace. Cassandra isn't either." He dragged both hands through his hair, exhaling shakily. "Mom, she wasn't always like this. When we met, she was confident, ambitious, elegant. But the closer we got to the wedding, the more pressure she put on herself." Her mother kept reminding her that this wedding was a reflection of their family status. She kept saying she had to look perfect, speak perfectly, have perfect guests, a perfect husband. His voice cracked. I tried to keep up. I tried to be what she wanted. He paused, then met my eyes. "That's why I said what I said to you. About you being embarrassing." I stayed silent, letting him continue. "She told me your clothes weren't fancy enough. Your house wasn't stylish enough. That you'd embarrass her family." And his eyes filled with tears. I was scared she'd leave me if I didn't listen. My heart tightened. "So you chose her?" He winced at the words. I thought I had to. And now?" I asked quietly. He looked at the suite door again. "Now I don't know what to do." I took a slow breath and answered him honestly. "You choose what gives you peace. Not today. Not the wedding. But your life." He nodded slowly, wiping his face with the sleeve of his suit jacket. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The hallway was quiet, except for the muffled whispers of guests outside the ballroom. I could feel their curiosity, their judgment. A ruined wedding was a spectacle, especially one at a luxury venue like this. Suddenly, the bridal suite door burst open. Cassandra's mother stormed out, her pearl necklace slightly crooked, her expression a mix of fury and mortification. "Ethan!" she snapped, as if he were a child who had misbehaved. "What have you done? Do you know how humiliating this is for our family? Your fiancée is in absolute hysterics." Ethan straightened, stiffening. "She needs help," he said firmly. "Help?" Cassandra's mother scoffed. "What she needs is discipline. She's overwhelmed because everything must be perfect, and you—" Her eyes swept to me with disdain. "You brought her here." She said her like I was dirt on the bottom of her heel. Ethan stepped in front of me protectively. "Don't talk to my mother like that." A small warm spark lit inside me. It was the first time he had stood up for me in years. Cassandra's mother narrowed her eyes. "Your mother should have stayed home. She shouldn't be anywhere near this wedding. She's the reason Cassandra had a breakdown." I didn't react, but Ethan did. "Stop," he said, louder this time. "Mom didn't do anything wrong. You and Cassandra have been obsessed with image and perfection. That's what caused this." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Watch your tone. Our families are merging tonight. You don't speak to me that way." "No," Ethan said. "We're not merging anything tonight." A small gasp escaped from several nearby bridesmaids. Cassandra's mother blinked. "What?" Ethan took a deep breath, his voice steady. "There's not going to be a wedding today." The hallway seemed to freeze. Guests down the corridor turned their heads. Even the hotel staff stopped moving for a moment. Cassandra's mother's face twisted in outrage. "How dare you? After everything we planned, everything we paid." "It's not about money," Ethan said calmly. "It's about health. Cassandra isn't well. And I'm not walking into a marriage built on pressure, cruelty, and fear." She opened her mouth to argue, but Ethan turned away from her and toward me. "Mom," he said quietly, "I'm so sorry. For everything." For those awful words. For choosing her image over your love. For hurting you. My throat tightened. I had waited years to hear an apology, never expecting it to come in a moment like this. I placed a hand on his cheek. I forgave you the moment you were born, I whispered. I always will. He broke down, resting his forehead against my shoulder, shoulders shaking. I held him, rubbing his back gently, just like when he was a scared little boy. Then a voice echoed from behind us. Ethan? We turned. Cassandra stood in the doorway, her dress torn, her face streaked with makeup, her eyes swollen. She looked small, fragile, even broken. You're leaving me? She whispered, voice trembling. Ethan stepped toward her, softly but firmly. Cass, you need help. Real help, not more pressure. Not more demands. I can't marry you today. She looked at me with a mixture of hatred and devastation. She turned you against me. Ethan shook his head. No, you did that. Cassandra's legs buckled slightly, and her mother rushed to catch her. Guests began whispering again, their murmurs rippling through the hallway like a wave. I looked at Cassandra, not with anger, but with a quiet sadness. This isn't the end of your life, I said gently. It's the start of a chance to find yourself without everyone else's expectations crushing you. She didn't answer. She only sobbed into her mother's shoulder. Ethan took my hand. Let's go home. And for the first time in years. He sounded like my son again. Side by side, we walked away from the chaos, the noise, the shattered fantasies, toward the elevator, toward peace, toward each other. As the doors closed behind us, Ethan whispered, Mom, thank you for coming. I squeezed his hand. I'll always come. I don't know what shocked me more, the chaos unfolding on that luxury estate, or the way my son kept looking at me like I was the only stable thing left in his world. Even after everything he had done, even after the humiliation, even after the words that had pierced deeper than any knife. But in that moment, as the guests whispered and the bride sobbed on the stairs, it became painfully clear. My son was drowning in the life he thought he wanted. He pulled me aside, away from the crowd, away from the cameras, away from the gasps and murmurs. His hands were shaking. His eyes were glassy. And for the first time in years, he looked like my little boy again. Mom, I messed up. His voice cracked. I stayed silent. Not because I wanted to punish him, but because anything I said would crumble me. I wasn't ready to break in front of him, not yet. He swallowed. Everything was supposed to be perfect, he whispered. The house, the event, the image. All of it. But the truth is, he paused, then forced out words like they hurt him physically. I built a life I can't afford and a marriage that isn't real. My breath hitched. He continued, her parents, they control everything. I agreed to their conditions because I thought it would give me status, respect, a future. But it just made me lose myself. And now you... He shook his head. Unable to finish, the bride's parents stormed toward us. Her mother pointed at me like I was a stain she wanted scrubbed off the planet. You! She shrieked. Why are you still here? You're ruining everything. Before I could respond, my son stepped in front of me. Mom isn't the one ruining anything, he said firmly. Her father scoffed. You think guests will forget this disaster? Your mother doesn't belong here. We told you that from day one. She is not our social level. Then he looked me straight in the eyes. You should have stayed home. This event was not meant for people like you. It was the same sentence I heard 1,000 times from different mouths. But never with this much venom. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I simply said, I'm not ashamed of who I am. The bride's mother scoffed again. Of course you're not. People with nothing never are. But before I could reply, something unexpected happened. The bride spoke. Softly at first, then louder. Stop, she said, wiping mascara from her face. Her parents froze. Just stop. I'm tired. Her voice shook. You've controlled everything, my dress, my guest list, my life. And today, even my marriage. She looked at my son. I don't hate your mother. I barely know her. But they made me believe I had to choose between being the perfect daughter and having a normal relationship. She inhaled shakily. And I chose wrong. Her. Parents stared at her like she'd grown two heads.
Then she walked down the steps, stood in front of me, and bowed her head. "I'm sorry," she said. "You didn't deserve the way I treated you." The entire crowd gasped. My son nearly collapsed out of shock. I gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're young, and you're learning. That's all any of us can do." Her mother hissed, "You ungrateful girl. We raised you for better than this." The bride turned around slowly. "No, Mama, you raised me to be scared." The ceremony was over, in every sense. Guests slowly dispersed, whispering like wildfire. The planners packed up decor that cost more than my entire yearly income. The photographers deleted photos they would never deliver. And somewhere in the chaos, my son just stood there, staring at the wreckage of a dream he'd tried so desperately to build. He finally turned to me. "Mom, can you come home with me tonight? Please." My instinct was to say yes, but I didn't. Not yet. "Home?" I asked. "Or the house her parents bought?" He froze, because the truth hurt a lot. The bride intervened again. "Let her stay with me," she said suddenly. "In my apartment. Not the estate. Not my parents' place. Mine." My son blinked. "Why?" She sighed. "Because someone needs to help me figure out who I actually am. And someone needs to help you figure it out, too." She wasn't wrong. Her words were the most honest things said all evening. But I still hesitated, after everything, after the humiliation, after the rejection. Walking into their world again felt like stepping willingly into fire. My son must have sensed it, because he whispered, "Mom, I don't want to lose you." He cried openly now, right in front of everyone still lingering, and all the anger I had been holding for days, weeks, years, melted all at once. I hugged him. A real hug, a mother's hug, a hug he needed long before this disaster. He sobbed into my shoulder like he was 5 years old. "I'm so sorry," he repeated over and over. "I'm so sorry." And I whispered softly, "Then start over, today." By the time we left the estate, the sun had set, the music had stopped, the fairy lights flickered on empty chairs. The luxury wedding that cost a fortune had ended in whispers, arguments, and tears. But for the first time, I didn't feel like the embarrassing mother. I felt like the only adult in the entire event. And the night wasn't over yet, because what happened in the car ride afterward changed everything. The ride home was quiet at first. My son sat in the passenger seat, still trembling, wiping at his eyes. I drove slowly, giving him space. The city lights blurred past the windows, casting long shadows across the car. Every now and then, he would glance at me with a mix of guilt and relief, like he couldn't believe I hadn't left him behind after the disaster. "Mom," he said finally, his voice breaking, "I can't believe I almost lost you over all that. I kept my eyes on the road. You didn't. You just need to be honest about who you are from now on. That's all anyone asks of you." He nodded, but I could see he wasn't fully absorbing my words. The night was too raw, too full of emotions. He finally spoke again. "Do you really forgive me? For saying those things? For letting her words?" He hesitated. "Make me act like that?" I smiled softly. "Ethan, forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. Letting go of shame so you can move forward." He exhaled, the tension in his body slightly easing. I don't want to repeat my mistakes. Not with you, not with anyone." I reached over and squeezed his hand. "Then don't. Learn from tonight. That's all you can do. For the first time in years, the atmosphere felt calm, not perfect, not polished, not luxurious, but honest, human, real. The moment we arrived at his apartment, he invited me in. The place was modest, nothing like the glitzy mansion his fiancée had dreamed of. But it felt alive, warm, familiar, and for the first time, I didn't feel like an outsider. I want you to meet someone, Ethan said quietly. Someone who helped me see the truth tonight. From the living room, Cassandra emerged. She looked different, not glamorous, not perfect, but human, vulnerable, trembling, yet somehow softer than before. She avoided eye contact at first, her hands wringing nervously. But she stood there, waiting for my response. I looked at her. Cassandra, I said gently. Tonight was hard for all of us. But everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has moments they wish they could erase. She swallowed, voice barely audible. I was wrong. I judged you before I knew you, and I blamed you for everything. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I nodded slowly. Acknowledging that is the first step. The next is figuring out what you want for yourself, not what someone else demands. Tears filled her eyes. She blinked rapidly, struggling to maintain composure. I don't want to be the person I was tonight, she whispered. I want to be better. I gave her a small nod of approval. Then start there, right now. No wedding, no image, just honesty, with yourself and with the people you care about. Ethan looked between us, the weight on his shoulders lifting slightly. Mom, you're amazing, he said. I don't know what I would have done without you. I smiled softly. You've got to find your own strength, Ethan. I can guide you, but you have to walk the path yourself. He exhaled slowly, finally allowing himself to relax. I guess tonight proved something, huh? He said quietly. That all the money, the parties, the perfect weddings, they don't mean anything if we can't be honest with ourselves. I nodded. Exactly. Life isn't about perfection. It's about connection, love, and integrity. Cassandra wiped her tears and whispered, I get it now. I see what's important. She paused. I don't know if we're meant to be together, but I at least know that I need to be honest about who I am. Ethan took her hand briefly, then let it go. And I need to be honest about who I am too. I felt a surge of pride, not in the way people would admire luxury, success, or wealth, but in the way a parent quietly watches their child grow into an adult who finally sees truth over facade. By midnight, the three of us were seated at his small kitchen table, teacups in hand, leftovers from a quick dinner on the counter. The atmosphere was quiet but healing. We laughed softly, sharing small stories from his childhood, memories of school projects, scraped knees, late-night talks, and tiny victories. The world outside, the fancy hotels, expensive dresses, and shattered chandeliers, felt miles away. Mom, Ethan said suddenly, I just want you to know, tonight showed me that I made a huge mistake. I lost sight of what's important. I'm sorry for treating you like that. I reached over and brushed his hair back. Ethan, you're human. That's all. Mistakes are part of life. It's how we respond that matters. He nodded, swallowing hard. I'll never forget this night, ever. Cassandra looked up, her eyes sincere. Me neither. I learned more about myself and about life than I ever expected. I smiled. Good. That's what matters. Growth, learning, forgiving. She nodded, wiping her eyes. And I need to figure out how to move forward. Ethan reached for my hand. Mom, thank you for showing up tonight. You didn't have to. I know she said awful things, but you came anyway. I squeezed his hand. I'll always come, Ethan, no matter what. And just like that, after the chaos, after the humiliation, after the shattered dreams of a perfect wedding, something remarkable happened. A family, imperfect, real, and raw, began to heal. Not through a grand celebration, not through expensive dresses, not through luxury or social approval, but through honesty, love, and the courage to face reality. By the time I left their apartment, the streets were quiet. The city lights reflected on wet asphalt from a brief evening drizzle. I felt exhausted, but fulfilled. I had witnessed a lesson more valuable than any wedding could provide. Life isn't measured by appearances, but by love, forgiveness, and the courage to confront truth. Ethan hugged me at the door. Mom, I mean it. Thank you. I smiled, ruffling his hair. Always, and remember, no matter what, honesty and love will get you through anything. He nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. Cassandra stepped forward, offering a small, tentative smile. Thank you for understanding me, for helping Ethan and me. I gave her a gentle nod. Remember, growth is a lifelong journey. Be honest, be kind, and take care of each other. And with that, I walked out into the night, feeling stronger, wiser, and more grateful than ever. The next morning, the city seemed unusually quiet, almost as if it, too, was recovering from the chaos of the night before. I sat at my kitchen table, nursing a cup of tea, thinking about everything that had happened. The shattered wedding, Cassandra's meltdown, Ethan's tears, and the 22 frantic calls that had brought me rushing to their perfect disaster. Slash. I thought about how easily people chase perfection, status, and appearances, forgetting that life's most meaningful moments often come from honesty, vulnerability, and human connection. And as I reflected, a small smile formed on my face. Because despite the chaos, despite the humiliation, something had shifted, something permanent. HR. Ethan called me mid-morning. Mom, can we talk? Of course, I said, pouring another cup of tea. He sounded calmer this time, steadier. I've been thinking about last night, about everything. I can't believe how wrong I was. I thought impressing her, her family, the guests, that mattered more than anything. But seeing you step in, showing up when I doubted myself, it reminded me what really counts. I felt tears sting my eyes. I'm proud of you, Ethan. You took responsibility. That's far more important than any luxury wedding or social approval. He paused, then whispered, I don't want to live like I did last night. I don't want to chase someone else's idea of perfection. Not ever again. I smiled softly. Then don't. Live your life by your truth. That's all anyone can ask. And then he said something that made my heart swell. Mom, can you forgive me for my words before the wedding? For letting fear make me cruel? I chuckled softly. Ethan, you were scared. And scared people sometimes say awful things. Forgiveness isn't a gift for me. It's a gift for you. He laughed softly, a sound I hadn't heard in years. Genuine, free. Thank you, Mom. Later that day, I received a message from Cassandra. It read, I'm sorry for everything. I've been selfish and cruel. I understand now that love isn't about perfection or appearances. Thank you for showing up. I hope one day you can see me as someone learning, not someone to blame. I read it twice, then smiled. Some battles aren't about winning, they're about understanding. And in that moment, I realized something profound. The entire wedding disaster wasn't a failure. It was a lesson. For my son, for his fiancée, and for me. Life is messy. Life is unpredictable, but sometimes chaos reveals what's truly valuable. Love, forgiveness, integrity, connection. P. Ethan invited me over for dinner that evening. I hesitated at first. Memories of the previous night's chaos were fresh, but I knew I had to go. Not because I wanted to be a guest at a ruined wedding, but because family is more important than pride, appearances, or social status. P. When I arrived, Ethan opened the door with a nervous smile. "Mom, come in." Cassandra stood beside him, holding a small tray of cookies she baked herself. Her hair was messy. Her dress casual, but her smile was genuine. She looked tired, but calmer than the night before. "I made these as a small apology," she said quietly. I nodded. "Thank you, Cassandra. That's thoughtful." Ethan beamed. "See? We can all start fresh. No pretenses, no luxury, just us." We sat down in the modest living room. Tea, cookies, and laughter began to fill the space. Stories were shared, memories were recounted, and, for the first time, I felt that sense of family I had always hoped for. Not one built on appearances, but on honesty and understanding. Later that evening, Ethan pulled me aside. "Mom, I want to tell everyone what happened last night. Not to shame anyone, but to share the truth. That love isn't about perfection. It's about real people with flaws trying to do their best." I hugged him. "Then tell your story. But remember, keep it kind. Keep it honest." He nodded. "I will. And I'll make sure I never take you for granted again." As I left their apartment later that night, the city lights shimmered on the pavement, and a soft breeze brushed against my face. I felt lighter than I had in years. The humiliation, the chaos, the 22 frantic calls, they were behind us. What mattered was what we did next, how we moved forward. And in that moment, I realized something vital. Being a mother isn't about controlling the narrative or forcing respect. It's about showing up, being present, and loving unconditionally, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's painful. Before I drove home, I took a moment to reflect. Life will always throw storms our way. Broken relationships, shattered plans, unexpected betrayals. But the way we respond defines our strength. I could have stayed home that night, nursing hurt feelings and pride. I could have let my son learn the hard way, watching him struggle alone. But I didn't. I chose love. I chose action. I chose presence. P. And that choice changed everything. As I pulled into my driveway, my phone buzzed. Notifications, messages, comments on the story I had shared on social media, recounting everything. People wrote about their own experiences, about mothers and sons, about weddings gone wrong, about chaos turned into lessons. I smiled, scrolling slowly, and at the bottom, one comment stood out. "Agree. Please comment the city where you're watching from." I chuckled softly. That little phrase reminded me, no matter where people are, no matter how far apart, life's lessons are universal. Pain, love, forgiveness, and family connect us all. I leaned back in my chair and whispered to myself, life isn't perfect. Weddings aren't perfect. Families aren't perfect. Bad people, often imperfect. But love, real love, is always worth showing up for. And just like that, what began as a luxurious nightmare turned into a story of redemption, understanding, and connection. My son learned that life cannot be built on illusions. Cassandra learned that perfection isn't the same as love. And I learned that being a mother isn't about status or appearances. It's about presence, courage, and unwavering love. Even when others say you're too embarrassing, too ordinary, too much to bear. Because in the end, showing up, truly showing up, changes everything. And as I finally closed my eyes that night, I felt a quiet, peaceful satisfaction. The chaos had passed. The lessons had been learned. The hearts had been healed. Love, after all, was always the strongest luxury of all.